hi everyone. Welcome to this HFS Unfiltered videocast where I have a very special guest today, and we are going to discuss all things related to blockchain and probably get into cryptos, NFTs, Web 3.0, metaverse, and whatnot. So my name is Saurabh Gupta, and I lead our global research and advisory services here at HFS. And with me, I'm delighted to have Mariana Gomez from ING, who leads their initiatives around distributed ledger technologies. So welcome, Mariana.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Mariana, let's start a little bit with your background, right? How did you, you've been for 5 to 7 years in this role, looking at blockchain at ING. How did you end up here, right? Because blockchain wasn't a thing before that, right? So how did you end up here? Give us a little bit of background.
Well, I think by the time I got in, blockchain was started to be a thing, right? So we started by trying to understand a little bit the potential. So what was the technology about and what was the fuss about, right? There was a lot of people that was already commenting on indeed being a disruptive technology that could potentially change the way financial ecosystems interact with each other. So then we started with a group of engineers actually looking into indeed, what was this technology about? What was the underlying of it? What were those core principles that blockchains would have? And how could we apply this within ING, which is a financial institution governed by the Dutch Central Bank, right? So that's more or less how the journey started around 2014. And then, I don't know if you remember, but at that time as well, it was all about collaboration. Yep. Everybody was trying to understand it, and there was not that much subject matter expertise. Things are starting to have different perspectives. People started to experiment with it. So then we joined several groups. Everything was based on collab and working groups. So we joined several of those, and some of those formed really strong partnerships, and some of those actually changed into something different, and some of those just fell apart, right? It really depends on the shared values, on the shared perspective, and on balancing those interests among the participants within that working group.
Yeah, no, I think the thing that fascinates me, Mariana, about blockchains is that, to your point, it is a technology that thrives on collaboration, right? It is a technology that enables ecosystems, right? And in fact, we've been talking about this concept of the one ecosystem here at HFS, where essentially we are saying that like-minded organizations will need to come together if they want to find new sources of value. Do you think blockchain has lived up to its potential? Looking at your 7 years in this role, what are some of the highs and lows for you?
I think it has definitely lived to its potential. It's already delivering a lot of value in different aspects that we potentially didn't even look or thought before. I think it has evolved so fast, and I think it has attracted seriously the greatest minds out there, right? In all aspects. So not only in terms of the technology and engineers working together, but as well in terms of, for example, people trying to monetize whatever these teams do, right? There are totally new concepts, new subjects. If you go to the university right now, you actually have subjects that you have to take, right? Such as tokenomics, such as how do you actually deploy something on this type of distributed ledgers? There's a lot of people working on cryptography. There's a lot of people working on collaboration in terms of regulation. There's a lot of lobbying happening. So I do think it's moving masses in different aspects, and not only in the financial industry, but in a lot of different industries. So it's never a dull moment. The amount of news that are out there, the amount of things that are being invented and reinvented, it's crazy. It's just amazing to see all that yeah, all that power and the brains, working together towards the same objective. Um, and the downs, I think, from the journey has been that, yeah, there's also, as always, two sides of the story, and there's some criticism based on fear, based on ignorance, based on sometimes, based on also security, let's say. But a lot of the times it does require for you to dig deeper than and scratch the surface to really understand that some of those statements might not be potentially true, right? So all the education that needs to happen still, and it's education that has to evolve the way obviously the technology is evolving, and it's so fast that that you're trying to catch up, right? And then suddenly new terms come in and new trends come in, and it's like, oh my god, it's like a snowball effect, and it seems like it's never ending story, right? But you do have to update your narrative quite often and quite fast, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's been, even for a research firm and a researcher like me, it always keeps me on the edge to really understand it and what's happening. So tell me, Mariana, what's been the couple of highlights from an ING blockchain program initiative as you look back? What would you say are the top two things that you're proud of?
I would say, the research side of the team is quite strong, to be honest. They have been recognized several times in different forums because of the thought leadership. And it has always been based on collaboration, and it still is part of their DNA, right? So, for example, whenever they have an idea, they keep thinking, okay, we might not know it all, so let's bounce it with people out there. And I think that way of thinking, Saurabh, is potentially something that previous generations were not really used to, right? And now getting, for example, the user involved in this thought process. And since you see that, for example, Web3 is enabling not only this collaboration, right, but as well the distributed content creation, right? Then it's a different way of putting the customer at the center of what you do. So it is not anymore about you having the subject matter expertise. It's about indeed how this customer thinks, they will make use of whatever you are creating, or your products, or your liquidity, or your even your collateral or your assets, right? What are they gonna use it for? How are they gonna use it? And that will determine as well, where can you actually create value. So this swift in behavior, I think, it's not only on the way they use the financial systems or the financial infrastructure, but as well is all the way down to our core, is the way we have to serve them. And that is something that is unprecedented, and that is something that this technology is enabling, and that is something that is fascinating. Because everybody at every single piece of that journey adds value, and adds value for a reason. And the compile or the compound amount of that value is actually, it could be a token, it could be a market, it could be a platform, it could be so many different things. And that is something beautiful to see.
Yeah, I know. And 10 or even 10 years ago, we wouldn't have imagined a company as large as ING and several others to be so nimble and be at this edge of innovation almost. It's quite a remarkable journey from that perspective. But tell me a couple of use cases, Mariana, from a banking perspective that that you think has somehow changed how we've looked at financial services, right? What are some of the use cases from blockchain or distributed ledgers that you think are changing the way that we think about financial services?
Well, I think that is still on its way, right? For example, the whole evolution of decentralized finance, and the way that actually is starting to pan out, and how there is already a inflection point where, for example, financial institutions would like to leverage this automatization of algorithms, right? And the way, for example, DeFi determines interest, or determines a lot of different the demand and the supply that those algorithms actually calculate, right? And the way they determine, for example, risk, and the way they use all these different functions, right, that a bank would normally have in an analog way, and how is all that automated and digitized. That is something that obviously has changed the way we look at things. But yeah, we're talking about financial market infrastructure, and with that is not only the transformation on how do you actually distribute these assets, how do you again, make, for example, those liquidity pools and serve them to a different type of investor, maybe new markets, for example, in this case, retail market that has access, right, to these specific assets where before they didn't. And those are different journeys than the ones we are as financial institutions used to, because obviously they come with different risks. You need to have different processes to ensure, for example, that you have proper consumer protection, that you have proper understanding of even the product that each investor is actually trying to get, right? And those journeys have also changed, obviously, internally, right? The way you book these balances, the way you do things, the way you actually match, the way you report, etc. So all those changes are things that potentially we didn't consider in the past, and now it's giving you more direct access to those customers, and you have a different way to communicating to them, right, directly, and you have a different way to serving them. And they want different things. They want totally different things than customers, like a digital immigrant like me, right? And they question different things, and they expect different things from you. So you have to pretty much be awake and catch up, and try to serve that specific market. Another example is, for example, obviously the NFTs, right? The fact that people may invest on pieces of art that now you can see. For example, I know in this side, right, I have a painting in my house, and that painting could be also displayed the same way, but it could be a visual loop, for example, something auditive, something digital, something totally different. Or in the case of financial institutions like ours, you could use exactly the same type of standards in order to create maybe a securitization on, I don't know, mortgages, because each mortgage would be then a non-fungible token that you will hold as an owner, right, of that specific house, for example. So it could serve different purposes, it could serve different markets, it could serve different use cases. And what have we seen is we have seen, for example, a further utilization of the trade ecosystem. We are really a huge bank that is quite prominent in trade finance, in commodities trading as well. So those are two markets where we have find quite a lot of efficiencies. But there are efficiencies as well in other markets. For example, with the capital markets, financial markets, etc. And those are on their way. The thing is, they also take a little bit longer to transform and to migrate to these new technologies because of, again, the amount of regulation that you need, right? And the amount of different parties across that journey that needs to be involved, and then you have to really balance again, the roadmaps and making sure that they also prioritize it the same way as you do for something to actually happen in production. So how do you bring all those people together, with different tiers of investment and different type of, for example, values, prioritization, etc., into delivering something at the same time, right? It will take a long time, so it's not something that will happen overnight. But I think it's going in the right direction.
You mentioned trading, trade finance, and commodities trading. That looks so different today than it did even a few years ago, right? I never thought that there'll be consortiums of 15, 20 banks coming together and solving for these things. But also, if you talk to the average person out there, crypto and blockchain has two sides of the coin, right? On one hand, it's creating a lot of enterprise value. It's sort of the things that you outlined, right? It's catering to the new customer expectations. On the other hand, you're looking at cryptocurrencies as a speculative tool and driving the so-called black market and whatnot. You look at what's happening in the Ukraine-Russia thing right now. Yeah, on one hand, cryptocurrencies are helping Ukraine to get some assets, but there is a fear that Russians will pass through a lot of money through cryptocurrencies as well. Where do you think is the boundary here, Mariana, around cryptocurrencies? Is cryptocurrencies merely a manifestation of blockchain and we're just too fascinated by cryptocurrencies? Or where do you see, from your perspective, this whole notion of cryptocurrencies, and how are banks going to start looking at this?
Yeah, I think so that we haven't touched cryptocurrencies ourselves, right? And yeah, for very good reasons, obviously, because we are regulated financial institutions, and we need to make sure, that whatever we do is compliant with the regulation that we currently have. And in that sense, you need to really understand that cryptocurrencies is only one of the use cases of this technology, right? And underneath that use case, whether it be, for someone, as you mentioned, as an investment, for someone is really something of value, for someone is something transactional. So for different people, it may have different uses, right? For us, what it's the most important is obviously what it enables, right? Which is the ecosystem, which is the Web3 infrastructure. And that is exactly what we are after, right? It is how can you then again contribute? How can you allow for that specific contribution from your users, from third parties, from your suppliers, into this broader ecosystem to ensure, for example, that you gain the efficiencies that you're looking for any journey or any asset class that you may want to distribute or enable with this technology, right? There are a lot of different, obviously, use cases. For example, digital identity. We mentioned, before peer-to-peer lending. You can again distribute certain asset classes into a different market or into institutional, or for example, maybe even retail consumers. You can do so many things with this, and the technology is only a mean, right? And in this case, cryptocurrencies is only one, again, of the use cases that this technology enables. So we normally, the way we look at it is we put it aside, let's say, and we don't do anything with cryptocurrencies at this stage.
So what are you most excited by Mariana, these days. There's so much happening. There's Web 3.0 coming in. JPMC just launched its metaverse with its Onyx platform. There's this whole CBDCs, that are coming up. There's NFTs that we touched upon. There's this movement towards public blockchain, right? Especially with the ZKPs and zero knowledge proof sort of starting to come in. What sort of excites you most as you look at all these developments?
From a personal perspective, what excites me the most is that I can participate and I can decide where do I put, my effort, my expertise, and what can I help evolve, right? The collaboration aspect is something that I love, is the fact that you don't have formal lines anymore, and you can reach out to anybody, and anybody looks at you as a peer, and everybody can chip into something, anybody can have an idea, and a huge amount of people that you don't even know might follow that idea, and then you can create something together. I love that part. I really, really love that part. And I think from a institution perspective, it is indeed that infrastructure, transition that we are actually seeing right now, right? And the change again on the opportunities, on the way you serve your customers, right? Again, having the direct access towards what they dream of, and how are you going to enable that as a financial institution is something that is, amazing, because it gives you really an eye towards a new generation that wants different things than our parents, right? So it's a totally different way of working. It's a totally different way of gathering those, if you may, requirements, and then thinking together what are going to be their needs. For example, the changing atmosphere of COVID, right? And the amount of supply that we had on liquidity, right?
Yeah.
And then, but at the same time, it was not enough, for example, for a lot of youngsters to actually buy their first house. So how are you going to help them achieve that dream, right? And what can you come up with in order to maybe, again, as you have seen, fragmentalize, one apartment and sell it into pieces, or maybe, a smaller ticket value, and then allowing them to invest on something different, the share economy. So I think in the past it was these building blocks that now they're being really tangible, right? And then those are going to build upon a totally different way of everybody interacting with each other, and yeah, we are going to be there to make this happen together.
Yeah.
And that I really like.
No, so on that note, on changing the world, Mariana, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Me too, and thank you very much for the invitation. I hope, to see you again, guys, soon.
Yeah, thank you.